Have you ever imagined a prison where life itself meant punishment? Where even the air needed permission to move, and the waves of the sea seemed to know that inside, only pain resided. The world calls this place the Cellular Jail, but for the brave souls of India, it had only one name: Kala Pani. Here, there was something far more dangerous than hunger, beatings, or loneliness: hope. Because if hope survived, the oppression of the British would be wasted. This was a place where dreaming of freedom was itself a crime, and crime meant a life worse than death. Picture this. You're torn away from your home, your loved ones, from every comfort you've ever known. The sea stretches endlessly before you, wild, unforgiving, and merciless. Every wave seems to whisper despair. You're taken across the vast Bay of Bengal, on a journey that will strip you not only of your freedom, but of your very identity. This is Kala Pani Jail, a prison built not merely to punish, but to erase. Every moment here is a test of courage, endurance, and willpower. Far out in the ocean rise the Andaman and Nicobar Islands, remote, isolated, and shrouded in danger. Thick jungles hide deadly threats, while sharp cliffs and rocks guard the shores. Port Blair, the capital, became the site of this infamous prison. Construction began in 1896, taking 10 long years and costing more than Indian rupee 517,000. The prisoners themselves built it, carrying heavy stones from Burma, laying more than 3 million bricks, not to build homes, but a monument to suffering. The design of the jail was as cruel as its purpose. Inspired by Bentham's Panopticon, a central watchtower allowed guards to watch every prisoner at all times. Yet the prisoners could never see them. 7 wings spread out like the spokes of a wheel, each lined with tiny, suffocating cells meant for solitary confinement. Each cell measured only 13.5 by 7 feet, with a single high vent for air, built to crush the spirit in silence. Even brothers like Veer and Savarkar, imprisoned at the same time, could go months without seeing each other. Solitude and fear became constant companions, echoing through the empty corridors. Each day began before sunrise. The first labor was with coconuts, peeling, breaking, collecting water, separating husks. Thousands arrived every day, creating an endless, back-breaking cycle. But the most dreaded task was the coal, a giant oil extraction wheel. Where oxen once turned the press, now it was human hands. 11 to 12 hours of pushing that wheel. Bleeding, aching, exhausted, with no rest. Illness, injury, or even severe diarrhea brought no mercy. Many collapsed, only to be dragged back to work. Veer Savarkar himself wrote of men fainting, their hands raw and bloody, yet forced to continue. The air smelled of sweat, salt, and fear. Every glance, every movement could bring punishment. Prisoners were classified: dangerous, those like Veer Savarkar, the rebellious and politically active, and permanently incarcerated, sentenced for life, like Barindra Kumar Ghosh. Even ordinary inmates could be shifted between these groups at the guard's whim. The mind was as imprisoned as the body, trapped in chains, fear, and unending monotony. Torture was both physical and psychological. Hathkadi, bar fetters, crossbars, iron restraints that dug into flesh. Toilet breaks were restricted, and food was scarce, often crawling with worms or insects. When prisoners went on hunger strikes, they were force-fed, rubber tubes shoved down their throats, sometimes causing death. Many, Mahavir Singh, Mohan Kishore Ramdas, Mohit Moitra, died in this living hell. Their bodies were bagged and thrown into the sea, leaving behind no graves, no names, just silence. Isolation became another weapon. Prisoners could write only 1 letter per year, censored and monitored. Secret messages were forbidden. Even a single gesture could lead to punishment. Jamadars, prisoners loyal to the British, enforced rules with cruelty, destroying any chance of trust. Fear became tangible, wrapping itself around every breath. Escape? Almost impossible. On one side lay the deadly Bay of Bengal, on the other, dense jungle inhabited by fierce tribes like the Jarawa. One wrong step meant death, by drowning, starvation, or the hands of the wild. Even nature conspired with imprisonment, making hope feel like a luxury no one could afford. And yet, even in that endless darkness, tiny sparks of courage refused to die. Prisoners whispered plans in secret, exchanged glances of solidarity, endured pain in silence, and carried defiance deep in their hearts. This wasn't just punishment. It was the birthplace of unyielding human resilience, proof that even in the deepest darkness, light can survive. Imagine waking before dawn, your body already aching from yesterday's labor, your hands raw and bleeding, your spirit weighed down by the sheer impossibility of rest. The prison was alive with suffering, a silent, constant reminder that here, hope itself was a crime. The morning bell echoed through the corridors as prisoners rose, weak from hunger, only to be dragged into another day of relentless toil. Coconut labor went on without end. Men peeled and crushed coconuts until their fingers split and their muscles screamed, while British guards watched without mercy. And then came the coal hoo, the giant oil extraction wheel. For 12 brutal hours, men were forced to push and turn this monstrous machine with nothing but their bodies. Some fainted mid-task. Others were beaten just to keep moving. Injuries were ignored. Blood and sweat pooled on the floor, a living monument to human suffering. Veer Savarkar's words still echo through time. Every turn of the wheel was a battle for life. Every drop of blood, a silent rebellion. The jails were more than cages. They were laboratories of psychological torture. Prisoners lived in solitary darkness, starved of touch, conversation, and hope. Even the smallest act of human connection could lead to punishment. For men like Savarkar, even thinking freely became an act of defiance. The British sought not just to imprison bodies, but to break minds, to erase courage, identity, and will. Meals were cruelly meager. A handful of rice, sometimes mixed with rotting vegetables or crawling insects. The sick and weak were given the same, or even less. Hunger and disease became constant companions. Any protest brought brutal retaliation. Hunger strikes became acts of resistance, desperate cries for dignity. The British responded with horror. Force-feeding through rubber tubes, shoved up the nose. Many died from this torment, among them Mahavir Singh, Mohan Kishore Ramdas, and Mohit Moitra. The jail became a graveyard of courage, yet within its walls, life still flickered, fragile but unyielding. The nights offered no peace. Darkness only deepened fear. Some prisoners whispered softly, exchanging secret messages in coded words, risking savage punishment. Jamadars, prisoners who sided with the British, kept watch constantly. One wrong move, one misunderstood glance, could bring the whip. Trust became impossible. Isolation was no longer just physical, it tore at the very soul, severing the threads of humanity itself. Still, Savarkar and his comrades found ways to resist. They memorized poems, shared whispered stories, held secret prayers, and celebrated the smallest victories. A coconut peeled faster. A task finished despite exhaustion. Every act of endurance became defiance. Every breath drawn in that prison was rebellion. The human spirit, though bruised and bleeding, refused to break. Escape was a dream, distant and deadly. The Bay of Bengal's waters churned with violent waves and hidden rocks. Dense forests covered the islands, home to the Jarawa tribes, known to kill intruders. Any escape attempt was nearly suicidal. Yet some dared to dream, to imagine slipping into the jungle, swimming under moonlight, and surviving on sheer will. These dreams, though nearly impossible, were sparks of defiance, small flames of freedom against overwhelming darkness. Even the prison's architecture was part of the cruelty. 7 wings radiated from a central tower, forming a star-shaped maze of misery. The cells were tiny, cold, and damp, with almost no air. The sounds of chains, whips, and suffering echoed endlessly, a chorus of pain and endurance. And yet, amid this horror, brotherhood quietly bloomed. Savarkar and other prisoners exchanged letters when they could, shared memories, and offered strength to one another. Even the smallest gestures, a nod, a glance, a shared burden, became symbols of solidarity. In that pit of despair, humanity endured. Their bodies might have been broken, but their hearts remained alive. They knew that to surrender meant not just death of the body, but death of the soul. In part 2, the full weight of the jail becomes clear, not just as a physical cage, but as a battlefield of endurance, willpower, and spirit. Every day was a test. Every labor was a trial by fire. Every punishment, a challenge to their humanity. And yet, through it all, courage endured. Even in the shadow of death, the flame of rebellion and hope refused to be extinguished.
Want part 2? Comment below.